Chapter 6:10. Silence. A deathly silence. None of the group members who were standing behind Ji Tsang Tian made a move. Ji Tsang Tian's brows creased tightly as he looked at Lan Ling Nuo's aggrieved look as the rage in his heart surged. Are you all deaf? This group leader says, tie up these people who don't know what's good for them. Save your sister-in-law. He shouted furiously as he turned around and stared at those group members behind him. But he discovered that the remaining 50 over group members, other than those 20 over people who followed Ji Tsang Tian to stay in the array barrier, who were trembling while holding their weapons, not knowing what to do. The other group members all stared at Ji Tsang Tian with a furious expression. They simply couldn't understand why their brilliant group leader had turned into this state today. Was it because of Lan Ling Nuo, that wretched woman? Some group members couldn't help but burst out, Group leader, the person who doesn't know what's good for her is Princess Ling Nuo, it's you. If it wasn't for the world group, if it wasn't for Miss Yi, we would have already become that huge beast, becoming the magical beast's food. We're mercenaries. We're real mercenaries. We will absolutely not do things like biting the hand that feeds us. One after another, the group members started to voice out the unhappiness in their hearts. But they knew clearly in their hearts that in their group leader's heart, Lan Ling Nuo was a treasure which no one could taint. They didn't dare to blame everything on Lan Ling Nuo, but in their words, the spearhead was pointed towards Lan Ling Nuo. After being slapped twice, Lan Ling Nuo's cheeks were swollen and red. When had she ever suffered such humiliation? She knew that she wasn't a match for Tong Ziqing, so she didn't dare to retaliate forcefully, only covering her mouth and her cheeks as tears started to flow down. Her mouth would occasionally, affectionately, call out, Brother Tsang Tian, looking as pitiful as she could be. When he heard the accusation from his team members, he cried even louder. The surrounding magical beasts had all been killed by the world group's youngsters. Now that they heard Lan Ling Nuo's sharp cries, they felt that it was ear-piercing and wanted to slap this lady till she fainted. Their hearts were filled with concern for Yiqing Luo's safety, and Lan Ling Nuo looked like she was at a funeral, so who would feel good about it? Hearing Lan Ling Nuo's cries, Ji Tsang Tian's heart ached as he totally didn't realize that it was his own fault, only feeling that his group members had all been brainwashed by the other party. The members who had always obeyed his orders dared to refute him today. They reprimanded him and even indirectly talked about their sister-in-law. If they hadn't been brainwashed by the other party, how could his members have become like this? Good. Good, you guys. You dare to resist my orders? You want to join their team, right? Fine. I'll fulfill your wish. Ji Tsang Tian directly tore down the group leader's badge from his chest. The other group members realized what Ji Tsang Tian wanted to do, and their expressions instantly changed. Ji Tsang Tian was trying to make them leave the Blue Dragon group. All of them were Blue Dragon group's elite team, and Ji Tsang Tian was willing to disregard their many years of brotherhood just for a woman. These members were completely disappointed. All of them clenched their fists so tightly that their veins popped out. The way they stared at Lan Ling Nuo was as though they were looking at a vixen who could bring calamity to the country and people. Quickly look. Qiao Jin stared at Yiqing Luo's direction as a glint flashed past his eyes as he cried out in joy. The world group's youngsters weren't in the mood to appreciate this farce. Chapter 6:11. Only to see two figures appearing indistinctly in that dazzling light. It was Dmo Xian. That tall figure, under the pull of the dazzling light, projected a long shadow. Yiqing Luo was embraced in his arms. Dmo Xian walked out from the light ball in an unhurried and steady manner. The air billows behind him blew up their sleeves and their black hair. Whereas Dmo Xian was still calm and composed as he walked slowly. The world group's youngsters suddenly felt their eyes turning moist. They stared at the two people in the light as their suspenseful hearts finally calmed down. Ni Ruopan and Kitty Li were already crying out loud. Luckily, Luckily nothing happened to their Qing Luo. Luckily the overlord was by their side. Roar! Child Yin's eyes widened as it looked even more ferocious. Light balls started to spew out from its mouth once again. These two despicable humans actually dared to look down on it. And even dared to turn their backs against it. Child Yin howled, and that fat body which was like a mountain trembled, and following that, an endless stream of light balls were released. This time round, the attack range had obviously expanded. It wanted to annihilate the entire 5th level. Long Yunzhan reacted in time as he swiftly called for everyone to leave at the fastest speed possible. Ah Xian! Yiqing Luo hooked onto Dmo Xian's neck as the both of them exchanged glances, and immediately, the corners of their lips twitched meaningfully. Following that, Yiqing Luo's peripheral vision shot a glance at Child Yin as she leapt up from Dmo Xian's arms. Dmo Xian followed closely behind her. Two figures floated in mid-air as they faced that light ball which kept on exploding. The white light flickered as though it was a dream. Under this white light, the duo's peerless, devastatingly beautiful faces became even more spirited and handsome. Yiqing Luo's black robe was dancing in the strong wind, like a budding rose, a rose in the dark night. Yiqing Luo's feather fan spun a few rounds on her fingertips as a ray of red light was released from the feather fan, turning into a biting cold wind blade as it met the light ball head-on and struck back. The light ball surged, and this wind blade was extremely powerful. The two forces were stuck in mid-air and collided with each other. Gazing at Yiqing Luo's increasingly sweet and exquisite side profile under the white light, Dmo Xian's gaze turned gentle as his lips curled into a smile. His palm moved and a vigorous energy wrapped around the wind blade that Yiqing Luo created. Yiqing Luo's profound energy was already on par with those light balls. Now with the addition of Dmo Xian's profound energy, those light balls were immediately pushed back. Child Yin was extremely infuriated as he howled and hammered his chest before jumping up agilely to avoid the light ball that was coming back at him. With a leap, it pounced towards the two people floating in the air. Yiqing Luo sneered, her charming eyes were cold and indifferent, without a hint of panic. She exchanged glances with Dmo Xian and her body lightened as the feather fan in her hand opened up and waved out a fire dragon, speedily coiling towards Child Yin. In the fire dragon, there were still many strands of silver silk which headed straight towards Child Yin. Under the encirclement of the fire dragon, Child Yin was already infuriated and totally didn't notice the silver silk which was attacking from the side. After it dispersed the fire dragon which Yiqing Luo had released, those strands of silver silk swiftly pierced into its other eye. That was right. That fire dragon was simply a cover which Yiqing Luo used to confuse Child Yin. So what if it was a high-leveled mirage beast? Mirage beast was after all a beast. No matter how intelligent it was still a beast. After knowing Child Yin's weakness, how would Yiqing Luo let go of its other eye? Chapter 6:12. Child Yin howled as copious amounts of blood started to gush out from its eyes. It covered its own eyes as it kept jumping around and howling. How could it endure the pain of its two eyes being pricked? It cried out miserably as its mountain-like body lost its balance after its eyes couldn't see as it fell heavily onto the ground. When Long Yunzhan saw that, he had already swiftly listed out a set of battle tactics in his mind as he waved his arm and called out to the World Group's youngsters to swarm forward. The current Child Yin had already lost half of its battle ability. It wasn't afraid that it was shooting out light balls. Child Yin's huge body was indeed a great help to it during battles. But after its eyes couldn't see, this assistance became a hindrance. Its mountain-like tall body totally couldn't maintain its balance and stand up. It only had a beast's senses and sense of smell. But the surroundings were filled with the stench of blood from the magical beasts. Its ears were filled with the sounds of numerous humans walking around. How could it differentiate? At this moment, Child Yin could only wait to be captured. Death was just a matter of time. In just a joss stick's time, Childine breathed its last breath amidst the pain. The world group's youngsters looked at their own hands in disbelief and took another look at Childine, who was lying on the ground, still in disbelief. An advanced leveled mirage beast which had walked out from the 7th level. They had killed a 7th level advanced leveled mirage beast. Those who were immersed in joy didn't notice that not too far away, a strange flying insect was flapping its wings as it slowly got closer to that black-cloaked man's corpse. That flying insect stayed on the black-cloaked man's face for a moment. Following that, it extended its 2 antennae as it slowly probed into the black-cloaked man's eyeball. Using a little strength, it hugged that eyeball in its antennae as it flapped its wings and silently disappeared. The world group's youngsters sat on the ground as though a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders. Everyone were so exhausted that no one could be bothered if what they were sitting on was flat ground or a magical beast's corpse or a pool of blood. They only wanted to sit down and have a good rest. Yiqing Luo's gaze swept past everyone, and after ascertaining that no one was seriously injured, she heaved a sigh of relief. She was really worried that because of her insufficient concern, it would cause her own brothers to get hurt. Lulu, distribute the medicinal pills to the brothers to replenish their physical strength. Long Yunjian glanced at Baiming Lulu. Baiming Lulu nodded, took out a palm-sized jade bottle from her bosom, and began to distribute the medicinal pills one by one. This was the medicinal pill which Yiqing Luo had discussed with Baiming Lulu last night to prepare. These elixirs were low-grade elixirs that could only replenish one's strength. Generally speaking, Yiqing Luo didn't advocate the use of this medicinal pill. After all, an expert could not completely rely on elixirs. There would always be a time when one would run out of medicinal pills, and there would always be a time when one would forget to bring medicinal pills. It was extremely important for an expert to know how to adjust his body's constitution and quickly replenish his stamina so that he could focus on the next battle. Yiqing Luo asked Baiming Lulu to bring it along as a backup. This was an accident. He had not expected that a 7th level Childine would appear in the 5th level. The youths must have exhausted all their energy. Thinking of that slender figure which she saw among the group of beasts, Yiqing Luo's heart had an uneasy premonition. For safety's sake, it was better to maintain his strength. There would always be accidents in everything. After she finished distributing the medicinal pills, Yiqing Luo took a look at the Blue Dragon Group's members who were sitting by the side with an ugly expression, and then looked at Jitsang Tian, who was coaxing the lady in his arms. Once a competitor appeared, the previous admiration and love would turn into extreme admiration and extreme love. Immediately, Jitsang Tian stood up and placed his palms on Lan Ling Nuo's shoulders. His broad chest pressed against Lan Ling Nuo's slender back. He looked at Dmo Xian complacently. The complacent smile on his face froze. Dmo Xian didn't even look at him. Jitsang Tian's heart surged with a sense of humiliation as he raged at the group members behind him. Didn't you hear what your sister-in-law said? They're trying to poison us. The group members were so aggrieved that they really wanted to steel themselves and leave the Blue Dragon Group. But when he thought of the few years he had spent in the Blue Dragon Regiment, growing step by step with the Blue Dragon Regiment, and his own brothers in the Blue Dragon Regiment, no matter what, before today, their regiment commander was indeed a good regiment commander. In the end, they still couldn't bear to part with their feelings towards the Blue Dragon Group. The group members clenched their teeth as they said a sorry to Baiming Lulu softly and returned back to the group. Yiqing Luo naturally wouldn't let Child Yin's corpse be wasted here. Just as they got nearer to Child Yin, they heard Jitsang Tian's furious howl. You want to keep the huge beast's corpse for yourself. As a group leader for over 10 years, Jitsang Tian naturally understood how valuable a high-leveled mirage beast from the 7th level was. How could he possibly let Yiqing Luo monopolize it all? Especially the high-grade mirage beasts. There were magic crystals worth thousands of gold in their heads. Naturally, Jitsang Tian had already gone through a meticulous calculation in his mind. The World Group's youngsters had just gone through a great battle with Childine and killed hundreds of mid- and advanced-leveled magical beasts, exhausting too much of their profound energy, so their profound heart jade would definitely dry up. Even if the World Group had 60 over people, the current them absolutely could not be compared to the members on his side. Chapter 6:15. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched as she glanced sideways at Ji Tsang Tian with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Blue Dragon Group leader's meaning is, "You also want to split Child Yin's corpse?" Ji Tsang Tian straightened his back. "That's of course. The huge beast's death, our Blue Dragon Group has contributed quite a bit." Pausing for a moment, he turned back and swept a glance at the group members behind him as his confidence increased. "Moreover, our Blue Dragon Group has lost 50 over brothers while none of you have died. That's enough to show how much we have contributed." Blue Dragon Group's members all opened their eyes wide. The World Group's youngsters all had a cursing expression on their faces. Damn it! They knew Ji Tsang Tian was shameless, but they didn't know that he was this shameless. He was simply shameless. He could even say such shameless words. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a chilly smile as her fingertip hooked slightly. A petite and adorable fox and a petite leopard jumped onto Yiqing Luo's arms and stood on her shoulders, one on the left and one on the right. On the backs of these two little war pets hung a space bag, and there were several pieces of magical beast cores in their mouths. Under everyone's gaze, they openly spat them into the space bag. This time round, the group of members who were rather speechless towards their own group leader started staring at that bag of magical beast cores. That's right. There were also magical beast cores. Earlier there were a total of 200 over intermediate and advanced leveled magical beasts, so there might even be magic crystal stones. They were only thinking of preserving their lives and had totally forgotten about this matter. They had not expected. Yiqing Luo actually asked her two war pets to go pick up those magical beast cores. The one with the biggest reaction was Lan Ling Nuo, "Slut. You actually dare to steal the magical beast cores behind our backs. Quickly pass the magical beast cores to us. Otherwise, don't blame us Blue Dragon Group for not standing on ceremony." The other members were also a little displeased in their hearts. Although towards Yiqing Luo and the others, they were filled with admiration. But earlier, those magical beasts, they had indeed put in some effort. Moreover, these magical beast cores might possibly contain magic crystal stones, which was a huge sum of money. People's hearts were easily swayed by money. This was human nature. One of the group members who had joined in the battle earlier turned towards Yiqing Luo's direction and said, "Miss Yi, although the group leader's words are a little harsh, but it's not without reason. Everyone here are people who had joined in the battle. These magic cores, magic crystals, should be split amongst us." Yiqing Luo retrieved the space bag from Shiju's back and immediately grabbed a handful of it. The magic core in her palm shone brightly. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly, and her eyes were tainted with some mockery. "Originally, I had indeed intended to divide these demon cores equally, but, seeing the leader of your esteemed group eating in such an unsightly manner made me lose my appetite." Soon after, with a wave of her hand, the monster core in her hand was thrown towards the small stream beside her. Pieces of monster cores fell into the edge of the stream. He could vaguely see that there were 2 mana crystals mixed in. Mana stones. That was a mana stone. Wasn't it a little too casual to throw it away just like that? "Even if I throw it away, I don't want to give it to you." Yiqing Luo looked at Ji Tsang Tian, who was staring at the stream with a steely green expression, as she gave a charming smile. "I hate being forced the most." "You." Lan Ling Nuo stood up in a flustered and exasperated manner as she walked over and pushed Yiqing Luo fiercely. "You slut. You snatched our bear beast's corpse, and now you still want to forcefully occupy the huge beast's corpse. You even want to snatch away the magical beast core which our Blue Dragon Group had risked our lives to exchange for. Don't you have any face?" Yo! This little princess actually knew what face was. Chapter 6:16. His 5 fingers clenched tightly, and scarlet traces appeared on his plain white wrist. Yiqing Luo leaned close to Lan Ling Nuo's face, as a pair of bewitching eyes looked at her coldly, with that arrogance. Lan Ling Nuo felt her legs go weak, and a chill rose from the bottom of her feet. He felt as if he was in an ice house, so cold that it was bone-chilling. He wanted to struggle, but he didn't have the strength to do so. Should I say that you are daring or foolish? Yiqing Luo's enchanting voice rang beside her ear like an evil spirit demanding for her life. Lan Ling Nuo's eyes widened. Her exquisite and beautiful face was now twisted in a terrifying manner due to fear. You don't have the ability and yet you dare to come knocking towards me. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she sneered, aren't you very confident in your own beauty? Wasn't it 90% sure that she would win against Ji Tian? How about I do a test for you? How would Yiqing Luo not be able to tell that this Lan Ling Nuo totally had no feelings for Ji Tian? She was merely making use of Ji Tian's admiration towards her to coax Ji Tian to be obedient to her. In other words, she was simply enjoying the pleasure of a man being infatuated with her. Lan Ling Nuo's face paled as she realized something. Indeed, he heard Yiqing Luo laughing coldly, I'll kill you and let's see if Ji Tian will help you take revenge and kill me. You! Lan Ling Nuo was so scared that her face turned pale as she stared at Yiqing Luo in terror, you dare to kill me. I am the princess of the East Continent. My status is noble, you. Lan Ling Nuo was in the middle of loudly announcing her identity with a sharp voice when her body suddenly became light. Her entire person fell to the ground in a sorry state. The blood of the demonic beasts covered the ground and stained her body. The angle of Yiqing Luo's casual throw was extremely good. Lan Ling Nuo's face first landed on the ground, and she immediately rolled in a circle. She collided with the corpse of a magical beast at the side, and coincidentally buried herself in the wound of the magical beast's corpse. When Lan Ling Nuo's stomach churned from the smell of blood, she lifted her head. Her head was almost completely covered in blood. Just the thought of a bloody head sent chills down his spine. Ah! Ah! Lan Ling Nuo's vision was filled with the color of blood. Her entire head was covered in mucus and blood, which flowed down her face continuously. She hugged her own face, screaming as she tried to run towards Ji Tian's direction. Although the members of the Blue Dragon group had been through many battlefields and had seen many dead people, they were still shocked when they saw a bloody man charging at them. One by one, they dispersed. No one dared to get close to her. Aren't you trying to distort the truth? Aren't you trying to forcefully eat something that doesn't belong to you? Don't you like monster cores? As their sister-in-law, if I don't do something for them, how can I convince the public? Yiqing Luo's chilly voice had a hint of ridicule in it. Following that, the feather fan in Yiqing Luo's hand shook slightly and a ray of red light suddenly lifted Lan Ling Nuo's body up. Plop! Lan Ling Nuo's entire body plunged into the stream. The stream was instantly dyed red. As a princess, Lan Ling Nuo naturally knew how to swim. But right now, Lan Ling Nuo's beautiful face had been ruined by Yiqing Luo, and she was suddenly thrown into the middle of the stream, so how would she be able to react in time? She flopped around for a while and sunk into the water. Yiqing Luo's sweet voice was heard from the shore, it's just a slight effort, no need to thank me. Thank. It was already not bad that she didn't kill her. Ji Tian was so angry that his entire face turned black as charcoal, as he trembled all over. This woman was simply too arrogant. Chapter 6:17. What are you all still in a daze for? Go down and save your sister-in-law. Ji Tian swallowed his anger as he dashed to the side of the stream and jumped down directly. Those 20 over members who had been following Jitsang Tian also jumped down when they saw that. This kind of thing which could show their face in front of the group leader and wasn't dangerous at all, they were naturally more than willing to snatch it. The remaining 30 over members who had fought together with the world group previously, as they didn't like Lan Ling Nuo, they hesitated for a moment. Eventually they walked to the side of the stream and jumped down. The group of them were in the stream which wasn't considered spacious, but they still weren't able to catch Lan Ling Nuo. Lan Ling Nuo would surge down from time to time and pop her head out from time to time, making a grumbling sound before sinking back down. Jitsang Tian's heart ached for her. After a long time, even if it was a scorching hot day, soaking in the stream for a long time in such a cold place would make one feel cold. There were already quite a number of members who used the pretense of saving Lan Ling Nuo, but in actual fact, they were secretly searching for the magic cores and magic crystals which Yi Qing Luo had thrown into the stream. Standing in the dark, the crowd who were admiring this scene in satisfaction had a carefree smile on their lips. Is it fun? Dmo Xian glanced sideways at the smiling young lady beside him as his gentle peach blossom eyes overflowed with a helpless smile. Yi Qing Luo's brows rose slightly as she rested her head on his shoulder. It's fun. How could it not be fun? Yi Qing Luo moved her fingers, and under the sunlight's illumination, an extremely fine silver thread could be seen faintly, from the feather fan in her hands, directly climbing to the side of the stream, onto that Lan Ling Nuo who was struggling non-stop. That's right. 50 over people in a small stream, unable to save Lan Ling Nuo. Lan Ling Nuo would occasionally float up to the surface and occasionally pop her head out to catch her breath, which was all Yi Qing Luo's doing. This patient with princess syndrome not only had a problem with her brain, there was also a problem with her worldview. Time and time again, she had provoked her bottom line, so don't blame her for treating her as a performance toy for the world group's youngsters to entertain themselves after the battle. Seeing that Lan Ling Nuo was tormented till she was half dead, Yi Qing Luo then shook her fingers as she silently retracted the silver thread. Following that, she put on an innocent and comfortable look as she leaned on Dmo Xian's shoulder, smiling like a flower. Without the control of the silver threads, Lan Ling Nuo was quickly rescued ashore. After soaking in the water for the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, the blood on her head had been washed away, but she had already fallen into a coma. Chapter 6:18. Jitsang Tian clenched his fists tightly. You're the one who threw Sister Nuo into the stream. Shouldn't we take responsibility? Yi Qing Luo seemed as though she had heard the funniest joke in the world as she clutched her tummy and burst out laughing. Your sister Nuo cares so much about her appearance. I'm just trying to make her face a little cleaner. Pausing for a moment, Yi Qing Luo placed her feather fan on her lips as her vision swept past those group members who were like drowning dogs. What's more, as your woman and their sister-in-law, I should at least contribute to your mercenary group. Jitsang Tian said angrily, whether or not Sister Nuo wants to contribute to the Blue Dragon group is our group's matter, what has it got to do with you? Yi Qing Luo nodded in realization, oh yes, it has nothing to do with us. After saying that, she stretched her limbs and turned to look at her brothers. The farce is over. Let's go, let's continue with our quest. The youngsters of the world group stood up in an orderly manner. Jitsang Tian clenched his teeth as he couldn't wait to rush up and dismember Yi Qing Luo into 1,000 pieces. But looking at the woman in his arms, who was losing consciousness, he gritted his teeth and suppressed his anger. He then softened his tone, Miss Yi, it was my fault for using the wrong words. Could you please be magnanimous and let me borrow some clothes for Sister Nuo? Standing at the side, the members who were wringing their drenched clothes had an indescribable feeling in their hearts. In their eyes, the high and mighty regiment commander had lost his brilliance and prestige for the sake of a woman. Now, he had even thrown away his own pride. They were conflicted. On the one hand, he was bitterly disappointed in his regiment commander, but on the other hand, he remembered the trials and tribulations they had gone through together. On one hand, he wanted to leave the Blue Dragon group, but on the other hand, he couldn't give up his feelings for the group. As a result, compared to their regiment commander's displeasure, they hated Lan Ling Nuo even more. They secretly swore that if Lan Ling Nuo dared to be disloyal to their group leader, even if they had to bear the consequences of being kicked out of Blue Dragon mercenary group, they would kill Lan Ling Nuo. Miss Yi, we don't want those demon cores anymore. If you have extra clothes, just lend us one. One by one, the group members started to plead. Ji Tsang-tian stared fiercely at the group member who said that as he opened his mouth to stop him. But on seeing Yi Qing Luo's disdainful gaze, he instantly shut his mouth. Now, he was the one who needed her help. He could give up on the magic cores. He could give up on the mana crystals. But Lan Ling Nuo must not be allowed to die. Originally he thought that Yi Qing Luo would be extremely difficult to deal with, even taking the opportunity to humiliate him, so Ji Tsang-tian was already mentally prepared. However, Yi Qing Luo only revealed a difficult expression, propped her chin and pondered for a moment. Actually, it's just a piece of clothing. It's not impossible. Ji Tsang-tian suddenly raised his head. Not only will I give you a set of clothes, I can let all of you change into dry clothes. Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes hooked up into a crafty arc. Clearly, he was plotting something. Even though he knew it was a scheme, Ji Tsang-tian could only bear with it. What conditions do you have? Right now, it should be 5 in the afternoon. That was around 3 to 5 in the afternoon. Because of your disturbance, a large portion of our mission has not been completed. Yi Qing Luo intentionally paused, as her finger pointed to the group members standing by the side. Your beloved has turned into such a state, so I'm sure you don't have the mood to continue with the mission. I need you to lend me some men, to help our group complete the mission. Ji Tsang-tian's brows creased tightly as his entire face creased into a bowl. Borrow people. Was this a forceful headhunting? Chapter 6:19. This explanation might as well not explain at all. What was meant by only taking young and handsome young men and young ladies? What was meant by they were too old? Wasn't this blatantly ridiculing their age? The faces of the members of the Blue Dragon group twitched uncontrollably. Did she need to be so damaging? The World Group's youngsters all laughed out loud. After our mission is completed, we will naturally let them go back. Yi Qing Luo shrugged her shoulders with an indifferent look. This condition, whether to change or not, will depend on you guys. Ji Tsang-tian turned silent. Those group members also turned silent. Yi Qing Luo had been paying attention to them all the time. From the looks of it, they were using the mercenary group badge to carry on their internal communication. Yi Qing Luo wasn't in a hurry. Based on Ji Tsang-tian's abnormal concern towards Lan Ling Nuo, even if she asked him to kill his brothers by his side, in exchange for a chance for Lan Ling Nuo to survive, he would probably agree to it. So Ji Tsang-tian would definitely agree to this condition. As expected, not long later, Ji Tsang-tian raised his head as he squeezed out each and every word from the slits of his teeth. All right. I agree to it. Yi Qing Luo didn't hesitate as she directly walked towards the group of members and casually pointed. Very quickly, she pointed out those 30 over people who had taken part in the magical beast battle. I only want these people. As for the rest, just treat them as escorting you back to your encampment. Ji Tsang-tian was patient, and on seeing that she had finally finished choosing, he hurriedly opened his mouth. Clothes. Yi Qing Luo turned her head towards the World Group's youngsters. Young youngsters, take off your clothes. When the World Group's youngsters heard that, they were all stunned. They thought that Yi Qing Luo's realm ring had a lot of clothes. They had not expected that she actually wanted them to take off their clothes. This was the uniform which they had been wearing for less than 3 days. Even if it was already soaked in blood, even if it was torn, it still represented their group's uniform. These youngsters were unwilling, and Ji Tsang-tian frowned. You want us to wear your clothes? Up to you. Yiqing Luo replied impolitely. You. Ji Tian's muscles tensed up as his anger had already rushed to the top of his head. Lan Ling Nuo unconsciously moaned in pain as her little face flushed an abnormal shade of red and her body, which had crashed into his embrace, was boiling hot. Ji Tian panted heavily as he suppressed his anger. Yes. Go get changed, Long Yunzhan said calmly. The teenagers hesitated for a moment, and then one by one, they got into the bushes at the side and began to change their clothes. Yan Xiaoyi had ordered 2 sets of uniforms for everyone and everyone was wearing them. After a while, sets of clothes piled up on the ground. The youths changed into clean uniforms and walked out. This scene made Ji Tian's eyes twitch. There were clean clothes, but he had to give them dirty clothes. But this time round, Ji Tian had learned his lesson and didn't mention it again. Sloppy clothes were better than these soaked clothes. A group member picked a slightly cleaner set of clothes from the pile and passed it to Ji Tian. Ji Tian carried Lan Ling Nuo and was just about to help Lan Ling Nuo change her clothes when he suddenly saw a piece of clothing covering his head. Just as he was about to tear off the thing covering his head, he heard a lady's clear and sweet voice. These are clothes which I have not worn before. You wouldn't wish for your sister Nuo to wear other men's clothes, right? That one sentence successfully made Ji Tian's twisted fingers loosen up. Indeed, he wasn't willing for Lan Ling Nuo to wear other men's clothes. Looking at Ji Tian's back view as he went into the forest to help Lan Ling Nuo change her clothes, Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a crafty cold arc. The air was filled with the smell of blood and gloomy qi. If it wasn't for the mission, they really didn't want to take a step here. Whereas for those 30 over people who were chosen by Yiqing Luo, their expressions were extremely ugly as they stared at Ji Tian's departing figure. Was he going to abandon them just like that? He didn't even say a word of comfort. A feeling of abandonment rose in the hearts of these members. Recalling the scene where Ji Tian wanted them to leave the Blue Dragon group, disappointment immediately filled his heart. They suddenly did not know why they had been so persistent all this time. While everyone was staring at those members of the Blue Dragon group, Yiqing Luo's fingertip hooked onto Shiju's shoulder as she leaned close to its ear and whispered a few words. Shiju blinked its eyes and howled softly. In a blink of an eye, Shiju's figure disappeared from Yiqing Luo's shoulder. Qing Luo, that little slut deserves it even if she froze to death. Why do you still need to give her clean clothes? Yan Xiaoyi furrowed her brows in indignation. Chapter 621. Scapegoat. The youths were puzzled. Yiqing Luo's smile didn't diminish as her feet moved and she had already turned into an afterimage, speedily nearing the entrance of the 4th level. Among the dense trees, everyone's expressions tightened as they stared at Yiqing Luo's actions. Following that, he saw Yiqing Luo's lightning-fast figure and in a few breaths, she had already pinched a black-robed man as she walked out. That black-robed man's face flushed red from being pinched, as he kept struggling to pry Yiqing Luo's fingers away. He was originally hiding in the dark, paying attention to Yiqing Luo and the others' actions. His concealment was absolutely impeccable. He had not expected that in the blink of an eye, it had fallen into Yiqing Luo's hands. It was so fast that he still hadn't realized what had happened. Assassin. Yan Xiaoyi's beautiful eyes suddenly widened as she looked at the black-robed man in Yiqing Luo's hands and speedily rushed forward. Someone wants to kill us. Yiqing Luo nodded her head as her squinted eyes revealed an enchanting brilliance. Earlier when she was dealing with Childine, she had already discovered an unfamiliar aura in the dark. However, this aura wasn't strong, and it had been lingering outside the battlefield. This kind of aura. To Yiqing Luo, who was once a killer, she was absolutely not unfamiliar with it. There were assassins lying in ambush nearby. After Yiqing Luo sensed carefully, she confirmed that there was only one killer. It was probably an assassin who was secretly monitoring their movements. Yiqing Luo wasn't so silly to think that this killer dared to assassinate them alone. If the killer dared to come here alone to investigate the situation, he must have an accomplice. Yiqing Luo casually threw the killer towards Qiao Jin and immediately drew out a handkerchief as she slowly wiped her hands. Qiao Jin hurriedly trapped the killer. He stared at the killer for a long time before his face suddenly lit up. "Your scapegoat is referring to this." Seeing Yiqing Luo nodding her head, the World Group's youngsters started to laugh unkindly. That's what they said, anyone who offended their Madame Qing Luo, no matter who it was, they could forget about having it easy. Let's observe a moment of silence for those mercenaries. The youths all closed their eyes and observed a moment of silence. In fact, he couldn't hide the smile on his face. He had to admit that Yiqing Luo was indeed treacherous. The assassins did not know who their target was. But no matter who the target was, Ji Tsangtian and the others had to take the blame. This was not a light scapegoat. If he was not careful, he might be smashed to death by this walk. If the killer's target was the World Group, when Ji Tsangtian and the others left the Magic Beast Forest, they would definitely be surrounded by those killers. If the killer's target was the World Group or Yiqing Luo, Ji Tsangtian and the others had left the Magic Beast Forest and they were wearing the World Group's uniform. Those killers wouldn't care if Ji Tsangtian and the others were from the World Group, as they would definitely make a move on them who were wearing the World Group's uniform. If it wasn't for the fact that she had already planned it out in her heart, how would she possibly be so kind as to make a deal with Ji Tsangtian? Ji Tsangtian's entire heart was on Lanling Nuo, and if it was as expected, after meeting the killers, he would definitely abandon those group members and leave on his own. As for the remaining members, they looked like cowards who were afraid of death. After being abandoned by Ji Tsangtian, their hearts were in a mess, so not many of them would be able to survive. As for the reason why they chose these members of the Blue Dragon Corps, she had once said that she admired capable people. These cultivators all had a pure and innocent heart, but their ability had been buried by Ji Tsangtian, that person who had high expectations but low ability. And, most importantly, Chapter 622. When Blue Dragon Group's 30 over members heard that, their expressions instantly changed as they swiftly turned around, wanting to save Ji Tsangtian and his group of brothers. "Stand right there." A chilly command was heard, making one shudder. Those 30 over members subconsciously stopped in their tracks as their bodies stiffened, not daring to move. Yiqing Luo walked slowly towards them as her devastatingly beautiful face was masked with a faint layer of frost. Step by step, she walked extremely slowly. Every single step she took made an extremely soft sound. In those members' ears, it was as though that step had stepped on the bottom of their hearts. Heavy, powerless, unable to resist. Yiqing Luo's eyes were like ice as she calmly glanced at them. "Your group leader has already handed over your authority in the Magic Beast Forest to me. We're going to save." Before they could finish their words, they were interrupted by Yiqing Luo's ridiculing laughter. "Save? It's too late. You're all very clear on how much your group leader values that princess. She won't be able to hold on for much longer, and your group leader must have hastened his pace. By now, he should have already met with those killers." The 30 over members' expressions turned uglier by the minute. Their original admiration towards Yiqing Luo had now turned into thick anger. As compared to their admiration towards Yiqing Luo, they were more inclined towards the Blue Dragon mercenary group which they had gotten along with for the past few years. There were simply too many brothers here who had once gone through life and death together. Yiqing Luo actually schemed for the killers to assassinate the Blue Dragon group. She wanted to borrow the killers' hands to kill Ji Tsangtian. They were going to save Ji Tsangtian. No matter how inconsiderate today's group leader was, no matter how much he made their hearts turn cold because of Lanling Nuo. Group leader was after all the group leader. This was a deeply ingrained fact. As long as you're still Blue Dragon Mercenary Group's mercenaries, you have to listen to my commands obediently. Yiqing Luo's lips curled slightly as she raised her index finger and gave an enchanting smile. Your group leader personally promised me. More than 30 members, who had lifted their feet, abruptly retracted their feet. Yes. This was the deal that Ji Tian and Yiqing Luo had made. In the Magic Beast Forest, they must help the World Group to complete their mission, unconditionally coordinating with Yiqing Luo's actions. But if they knew that Ji Tian and the others were being chased by the killers and they still stood by the side, how were they going to face Blue Dragon Group? One side was love, the other side was righteousness. They really didn't know how to choose. Even if you rush over now, it's of no use. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with ridicule as she stared at the struggling expressions of these group members. His voice suddenly paused as he gave an innocent smile. Of course, if you insist on going against the deal and leave the World Group, I won't force you. Since they had already spoken to this extent, would they dare to leave so easily? Blue Dragon Mercenary Group was preparing to upgrade to a Silver Plate Mercenary Group and they must not have any negative comments. They had totally witnessed Yiqing Luo's mouth. If they really left now to save Ji Tian and the others, Yiqing Luo could totally spread the news of Blue Dragon Group violating the deal. At that time, when the Mercenary Union was reviewing the Mercenary Group's promotion, if they discovered this dark secret, it was very likely that the Mercenary Group's promotion would fail. Thinking of this, they gritted their teeth and suppressed the displeasure in their hearts. They stood where they were and did not mention anything about leaving. Chapter 623. The black-robed man struggled with all his might as his eyes opened wide, revealing a ferocious gaze as he bared his teeth in an attempt to intimidate Xiao Jin. The black-robed man had heard Yiqing Luo and the rest's conversation clearly, and had heard everything clearly. These children, who looked to be no more than 15 or 16 years old, actually had such deep scheming minds. Not only did they discover him who was hiding in the dark, they were even able to swiftly counterattack. Killing with a borrowed knife. This wasn't merely killing with a borrowed knife. It would also cause the Blue Dragon Mercenary Group to form a feud with their killer alliance. Even if they had recognized the wrong person and killed the wrong person. But in Ji Tian's eyes, he would definitely ascertain that these killers were here for him, Ji Tian. The black-robed man struggled to send out a signal flare, trying to warn his partner. But Xiao Jin's hands which were clasping the killer's arms were extremely tight. Who sent you here? Yiqing Luo walked towards the black-robed man as her vision swept past him. Who's your target? Pui. The black-robed man spat out fiercely. Damn. You still dare to be so arrogant in my hands. Xiao Jin instantly exploded as he threw him onto the ground and immediately stomped on the black-robed man's chest. This stomp was filled with strength. The black-robed man coughed fiercely as blood spurted out from his mouth. He kept on coughing violently as his body kept on shaking. A wooden token slid out from his messy open shirt. The black-robed man's eyes widened in terror as he stretched out his hand in an attempt to snatch that wooden token back. His hand had just stretched out when it was stepped on by a petite foot. A fair little hand picked up that wooden token. The totem carved on the wooden token was extremely exquisite. From that outline, it looked similar to a bat. In the middle of the wooden token, there were 3 words carved in flamboyant calligraphy: Killer Alliance. Killer Alliance. Yen Xiaoyi screamed out in astonishment. Killer Alliance. That was one of the top assassins in Nirvana Realm. One must know that the weakest assassin in Killer Alliance was at Mystic Profound 5th grade realm and their movements were remarkable. Furthermore, even if you had money, you might not be able to hire the assassins from Killer Alliance. If you wanted to hire the assassins from Killer Alliance, you had to go through connections. Ordinary people naturally heard of Killer Alliance's reputation. Especially those 30 over Blue Dragon group members, their faces were steely green as they clenched their fists tightly. An assassin from the Assassin's Alliance, those brothers, can they fight against these killers? A few of the members could no longer hold back their worry for their brothers and ran towards the 4th level. With one person taking the lead, the other members couldn't hold it in any longer. The reputation of a mercenary group was important. But if they were to watch their brothers die, they really couldn't do it. At most, after saving those brothers, they would leave Blue Dragon mercenary group. With this thought in mind, the members left one by one. You people. Yan Xiaoyi chased up a few steps and pointed at those group members as she scolded, ungrateful. Leaving just like that, you really are a dog that can't be tamed. In Yan Xiaoyi and the others' hearts, Yiqing Luo really took good care of these 30 over group members. Xiaoyi. Yiqing Luo called out to Yan Xiaoyi as she clenched the wooden token in her hand tightly. Raising her eyes, she gave an extremely calm smile. If they don't go and save their brothers, I would instead look down on them. The Blue Dragon group was their home. The members of the Blue Dragon Corps were their family and their brothers. If they really did not care about their brother's life and death to that extent, then they would really be known as a dog that can't be tamed. Looking at those people's departing figures, Yiqing Luo was even more certain of these people's character. These people should have a better place to develop. Chapter 624. You're thinking of. Long Yunzhan's handsome brows creased slightly, as though he was aware of Yiqing Luo's thoughts. Yiqing Luo tossed the wooden token into the profound phoenix ring and nodded decisively, yes. Long Yunzhan frowned even more. The surrounding youths did not understand the riddle between them and asked curiously. Yiqing Luo only gave a mysterious smile. Killer's Alliance. Yiqing Luo shot her gaze towards the black-robed man. The person who hired your Killer's Alliance is Yuqi family's patriarch, right? The black-clothed man no longer had the strength to struggle. He lay limply on the ground, coughing out a mouthful of blood from time to time. He looked half dead. The black-robed man didn't reply and Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to interrogate further. He continued, your target is me. The black-clothed man was still half dead. Yiqing Luo's eyes went into a blank as a bloodthirsty smile appeared, looking at Xiao Jin. Kill him. Killed. Xiao Jin was startled. He hadn't even gotten any information from the black-clothed man, and he was killed just like that. Kill. Yiqing Luo said without hesitation. She could already confirm that the Yuqi family had hired assassins from the Assassins Association. She should have guessed that the Yuqi family head had lost face in front of everyone, and it might even endanger the Yuqi family's position. How could the Yuqi family head let her off so easily? Patriarch Yuqi wished for nothing more than for her to die. These killers were professionally trained killers. They were a group of desperados who did not care about their own lives at all. Moreover, the habit of not being able to complete a mission no matter how big the world was had long been ingrained in his bones. Towards those who were bent on killing her, Yiqing Luo would absolutely not be lenient. The Yuqi family. There was no rush. Prey had to be slowly teased. Only then would it be interesting. After battling with Child Ian and hundreds of intermediate and high-leveled magical beasts, these youths obviously felt that their abilities had become much stronger. When it came to the rest of the mission, it was practically effortless for him to obtain the magical beast's corpse. Even the eagle beast, which was the most difficult to deal with, was completed with everyone's help. During the mission, the 30 or so members who had left also returned to the team. Their expressions were ugly and the gazes they used to look at Yiqing Luo were filled with hatred. Yiqing Luo could tell. She was right. Ji Zhangtian and the others were blocked by the killers at the entrance of the magic beast forest. Furthermore, Jitsang Tian brought Lan Ling Nuo as they abandoned those group members and escaped. Those members had all died in the hands of the Assassin Alliance's assassins. Yiqing Luo thought that these group members would at least accuse her of being cold-blooded, accusing her of knowing everything but allowing things to happen. But, from beginning to end, none of them spoke a single word. And towards Yiqing Luo and the rest's arrangements and deployment, they were extremely cooperative. When the youngsters were in charge of killing the beasts, Yiqing Luo and Beiming Lulu were in charge of 3 medicinal herb harvesting missions. After being promoted to Mystic Profound 8th grade, Yiqing Luo clearly felt that no matter if it was speed or skill, it had all increased by more than 1 level. While picking the herbs, she still had the leisure to tease the magical beasts guarding the herbs. By the time they finished all 10 missions and walked out of the magical beast forest, it was already close to midnight. In the pitch-black night sky, a bright moon hung high in the sky, dotted with stars. Having stayed in the magical beast forest for an entire day, the youths immediately felt that the outside world was too beautiful. He no longer had to endure the stench of magical beasts' blood. He no longer had to endure the gloomy cold air from the surroundings. Most importantly, the 10 missions were all completed. The youngsters walked out of the magical beast forest's cold entrance, not bothering about the corpses strewn all over the place, not bothering about the other teams who passed by them. Chapter 625. The 30 over members who had been silent swept a glance at those youngsters lying on the ground. Their gazes swept past those corpses as their brows creased slightly. Following that, they cupped their fists in a manner that wasn't considered polite but wasn't lacking in manners. Since your group's mission has been completed, we've also completed the transaction between the 2 groups, so we shall take our leave now. Saying that, the group of them turned around and left. Wait a minute. Yiqing Luo's clear voice was like a pearl falling on a plate as it reverberated in this silent and spacious magic beast forest entrance. 30 over members stopped in their tracks. Does Miss Yi have any other instructions? Their words had pulled the distance between the 2 of them apart, as though they didn't want to be involved with Yiqing Luo at all. Admiring someone was easy. Hating someone was also very easy. At this very moment, in the 30 over members' eyes, Yiqing Luo was an extremely vicious lady who was adept at scheming. In order to protect herself, she didn't mind sacrificing other people's lives. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she couldn't see the disdain and disgust in the members' eyes as she revealed a sweet smile and took out a piece of xian paper and a pen from the profound phoenix ring. She picked up the pen and wrote the world group's 3 words on the xian paper and immediately removed the mercenary group badge. Twisting the pin on the mercenary group badge, it was a symbol of vice group leader's seal. Yiqing Luo stamped the top of the xian paper and her slender fingers folded the xian paper neatly as she passed it to those members. The leader's expression changed as his brows furrowed. What do you mean by this? A piece of xian paper stamped with vice group leader's badge meant that she wanted to poach them openly. Didn't she despise them for being too old? Their looks weren't high enough. Yiqing Luo smiled charmingly as her long and narrow eyes revealed a captivating charm. As you think. You. This was the first time they saw someone poaching other mercenary groups' mercenaries in such an open and above-board manner. Give up, we are Blue Dragon mercenary group's mercenaries, we will only. Don't be in a hurry to reject me. Yiqing Luo interrupted the members' oaths with a smiling face as her fair fingers waved the xian paper. I admire your characters and am extremely interested in unpolished jades like you. The faces of more than 30 members twisted. Since they were unpolished jade, what was there to admire? Weren't they supposed to boast about it when they were poaching people? What kind of disparagement was this? You need to polish yourselves. You need to find the right way to guide them. Yiqing Luo ignored the expressions on their faces as she said word by word, this is the proof that I'm giving you. You can keep it first, perhaps. You might need it in future. Of course, if you're completely sure that you want to place your future and your life on the Blue Dragon mercenary group, then you can directly tear this piece of paper. The leader of the group stared at the paper with a hesitant expression. Listening to a 15-year-old girl say in an extremely mature manner that she wanted to guide them and polish them, this piece of unpolished jade. This feeling, it was so King strange. However, none of them could refute him. They had already seen Yiqing Luo's ability in the magic beast forest. However, why was she so confident that they would definitely keep her proof? The leader's peripheral vision swept past the expressions of the few people beside him as he stretched out his hand and received that Xian paper. In front of Yiqing Luo, he was about to tear it down. We don't need it. Chapter 626. Yiqing Luo spoke extremely slowly as her voice was filled with gentleness, leisurely and contented. She didn't anxiously hope that they would agree, nor did she have the feeling that it didn't matter whether they agreed or not. She just calmly stated the truth. Your choice to me doesn't have much use. But to you, it's a choice of fate. Yiqing Luo saw the leader's hand, which was about to tear the paper, stopped as he stiffly maintained the action of tearing the paper. He was stunned for some time before he stiffly moved his arm. What do you have to make us believe you? Yiqing Luo's smile was brimming with confidence, based on the fact that I'm Yiqing Luo. The 30 or so members were completely stunned. Just how arrogant was this young lady? Based on the fact that she was Yiqing Luo. She had that much confidence in herself. Not knowing why, the group members had an urge to believe her. In their minds, the scene of what Ji Tsang Tian had done for Lan Ling Nuo appeared, which made one's heart turn cold. Looking at the ground full of corpses, their hearts ached. The main culprit of all these was Yiqing Luo. But Ji Tsang Tian definitely had something to do with it. Ji Tsang Tian abandoned his own brothers, and under his brother's cover, he left. Yet, these brothers of his had died here. Their group leader abandoned them. His 5 fingers curled up one by one. The leader of the group grabbed the piece of paper in his hand, as though he was making a huge decision. In the end, the leader kept the paper into his bosom as he gritted his teeth. I hope that we will never have the chance to meet again. Yiqing Luo smiled in disbelief. I'm afraid this chance is not too far away. The 30 or so members left angrily. Looking at their departing figures, Kitty Lee blinked her watery eyes as she hooked onto Yiqing Luo's arm. Sister, why did you give them that piece of proof? The world group, which was personally written by Yiqing Luo, was stamped by the vice group leader. This piece of paper represented Yiqing Luo. Giving this piece of paper to those people in Blue Dragon group, wasn't she afraid that these despicable people would use that piece of proof to secretly do some sinister things? Momentarily, everyone was unable to understand Yiqing Luo's thoughts. These people, if we can rope them in and keep them for our own use, as long as we give them enough sincerity, they will definitely follow us through life and death. In just a short period of time, Yiqing Luo had already understood these people's characters. These people valued friendship and loyalty. With proper training, it wouldn't take long for them to stand on their own in the mercenary world. But aren't we going to be in the academy? Yan Xiaoyi didn't understand what Yiqing Luo meant. All the members of the world group were all students of the devil class. They went to school together and cultivated together on holidays. They only had 3 days a month. If he were to accept these people into the world group, wouldn't it be a huge mess? A portion of them are students of the Celestial Phoenix Academy. Their holidays are the same as ours. Yiqing Luo explained patiently. The other group are professional mercenaries, relying on completing missions to support themselves. We can establish a second group, and when we are all in the academy, we can represent the world group to head to the Mercenary Association to accept missions and grind for some honor points. Qiao Jin shook his head in disagreement. Even if it's the second group, they still represent the world group. If they were to use this opportunity to defame us. Chapter 627. I understand Qing Luo's intention. Long Yunzhan nodded, I agree. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled as she exchanged glances with him and smiled. It was because Long Yunzhan didn't reject her intention earlier. That was why Yi Qing Luo passed the proof to those group members after they left the magic beast forest. Long Yunzhan didn't reject this decision. The others would also agree and listen to her. The riddle which the two of them were playing earlier was because of this matter. Seeing that Long Yunzhan had already spoken, the other youngsters had their suspicions, but they still chose to believe in their judgment. They knew that Yi Qing Luo and Long Yunzhan would absolutely not harm the world group. Lil Luo, today's biggest contributor is me, don't tell me you shouldn't give me a little special reward. An arm went past Yi Qing Luo's hand as it circled around her slender waist. Following that, a refreshing and elegant sandalwood fragrance assaulted their nostrils. The man's broad embrace was tightly pressed against the woman's soft back. His smooth lower jaw was pressed against Yi Qing Luo's shoulder as his voice was deep and mellow. The other hand went past her other shoulder as it clasped her lower jaw. He forced her gaze to look in his direction. Yi Qing Luo's thick and dense eyelashes fluttered like a butterfly's wings, her bright pupils reflected that peerless beauty of a face. That pair of watery peach blossom eyes gazed at her lovingly. Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly trembled as she felt her cheeks turning red, as though her energy had been sucked dry by him. Evildoer. A living evildoer who could bring calamity to the country and people. Her peripheral vision saw those youngsters' ridiculing gazes, and Yi Qing Luo's cheeks turned even hotter as she turned around and faced Dmo Xian as she pushed his chest. Nonsense, the biggest contributor is obviously me. Then I'll give you a reward. The man's voice had just ended when Yi Qing Luo felt her lower jaw tightening. Following that, a warm touch covered her pink lips. That elegant sandalwood fragrance became more and more intense as it spread in her mouth. His kiss was strong and overbearing as it sealed her struggles and sealed her consciousness. What remained was only a kiss that was compatible with him. In Yi Qing Luo's mind, it was as though there was a taut string that suddenly broke apart. A scorching flame was burning in his body. Bit by bit, it eroded her will. Yi Qing Luo's little hand, which was on Dmo Xian's chest, gradually reduced in strength. Dmo Xian hugged her slender waist tighter and tighter, as though he wanted to melt her into his bones. Just as Yi Qing Luo's consciousness started to blur and was about to sink into oblivion, her peripheral vision swept onto the youngsters who were standing by the side, staring at them in a daze. Yi Qing Luo's face suddenly flushed red. Ah! Yi Qing Luo didn't know where the energy came from as she pushed him away fiercely. Who wants your reward? This monster. If it was in private, it would be fine if the two of them were intimate. Kissing her in front of all these brothers, with so many pairs of eyes, how was she going to maintain her dignity in front of her brothers in the future? Yi Qing Luo's face was so red that it looked like water was about to drip out. Qing Luo, it's all right, you guys carry on. Just treat as if we don't exist. That's right, that's right. We're already used to being abused. You don't have to worry about us at all. If you want to kiss us, kiss us. If you want to hug us, hug us. The youngsters' ridiculing words came one after another. It was because of their ridicule that the atmosphere became relaxed once again. Today's exhaustion in the magic beast forest was swept away in the laughter. Hearing the youngsters' ridicule, Yi Qing Luo's face turned red as she stared resentfully at Dmo Xian. But she saw him clutching his chest as his brows creased slightly. Chapter 628. Yi Qing Luo's heart thumped. She suddenly thought of something as the smile on her lips disappeared. She took quick steps towards Dmo Xian as she stretched out her hand and tugged his collar. You, come with me. As expected, with this tug, she could clearly feel that his body was slightly stiff. Although Dmo Xian maintained his smile and gentle gaze. But that slight crease on his brows, Yiqing Luo saw it clearly. Go back to the mansion and have a good rest. We'll be returning to the academy tomorrow. Yiqing Luo turned her head to look at those youngsters who were sniggering behind her. She couldn't be bothered to explain to them, I'll be back later, no need to wait for me. It's alright if you don't come back, we all understand. It's the last day of the holiday, just accompany the overlord well. Tomorrow Qing Luo still needs to go to the academy, overlord, you'd better take it easy. Yiqing Luo. Damn it, indeed she had no way to establish her prestige, these youngsters weren't afraid of her. Little Nine. Yiqing Luo shouted and Little Nine's tail shook. The palm-sized fox instantly turned into a huge fox. Under the group of youngsters, I understand, gazes, Yiqing Luo's face turned black as she grabbed Dmo Xian's hand and leapt onto Little Nine's back. Yiqing Luo's destination was that garden which Dmo Xian had given her the map of Death God Castle. The garden was still filled with flowers as hundreds of flowers bloomed. The fragrance in the air lingered around her nose. Standing in the middle of the flowers, Dmo Xian's eyes were filled with smiles. His curved peach blossom eyes were long and narrow with a demonic charm. Little Luo, the same location, the same you and me, are you hinting me to do what we did here that day? His tone was extremely joyous. That pitch-black obsidian-like eye started to spread out as it started to thicken. Yiqing Luo wasn't like the past, revealing a lady's coquettish side because of Dmo Xian's teasing. Her expression was grave as she grabbed Dmo Xian's extended wrist and with a tilt, she pressed him into the flowers. Yiqing Luo sat on Dmo Xian's abdomen as her hands tore his clothes. Dmo Xian caught the two little hands which were pulling randomly as he placed it by his lips and planted a kiss on it. Little Luo, are you trying to force yourself? His tone was evil, and his long and narrow eyes exuded a devilish charm that was incomparably alluring. Yiqing Luo didn't say a word as her face was still sunken, struggling to tug at his clothes. Little Luo, Dmo Xian's voice abruptly turned heavier as he tightened his grip on her wrist. Stop fooling around. Why are you hiding? Yiqing Luo sneered as her charming eyes were filled with chilliness. I forced myself on you, shouldn't you feel happy? If it was during normal times, Dmo Xian would definitely turn from guest to host. Indeed, I'm very happy. Dmo Xian stared into her eyes and spoke in a serious tone, but Lil Luo, you're a lady and a lady's reputation is very important. I hope that the relationship between us can be placed on our wedding night, and take it a step deeper. Pooh! Yiqing Luo's sneer grew thicker. Since when did Dmo Xian know what reputation was? He had always done things his own way and did not care about what others thought of him. Talk about honor with her now. But, I can't wait. Yiqing Luo's wrist nimbly flipped as she held Dmo Xian's hand, while her other hand speedily unbuttoned his clothes. A soft sigh which could not be heard came from the depths of Dmo Xian's throat. His clothes were open, revealing a muscular chest. But on that chest, there was an extremely glaring red, piercing Yiqing Luo's eyes. Chapter 629. Why didn't you tell me you were injured? Yiqing Luo stared at the red gauze, her fingers trembling as she touched it. However, before he could touch the gauze, he retracted his hand while trembling. Dmo Xian was injured. The high and mighty Di Zun was injured. It's not a big injury. I'm fine. Dmo Xian's lips twitched slightly as he raised his hand to caress Yiqing Luo's fine black hair. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you would be worried. There was so much blood flowing from this wound. How could it be just a small injury? If it was just a small injury, a few pills could solve it. Why would there be so much blood? Suddenly, Yi-Ching Luo recalled something. That map. The bloodstains on the map. Yi-Ching Luo's heart suddenly trembled. Your injury. Was it when you went to Death God Castle to help me draw the map, you got injured? That's right, the bloodstains on the map. Ever since Dmo Xian dashed into Death God Castle and brought her away from Zhu Wu Axian, she thought that she had guessed wrongly and assumed that Dmo Xian wasn't injured, hence she didn't probe further. If she hadn't noticed that something was wrong with his expression, she probably wouldn't have noticed it. A sense of vexation and guilt towards Dmo Xian arose from the bottom of her heart. She was not a qualified woman who could stay by Dmo Xian's side. She had never properly cared for Dmo Xian. It would only create one trouble after another for Dmo Xian. The more she thought, the tighter Yi-Ching Luo's heart became. There was a suffocating feeling in her throat. It was so uncomfortable that she couldn't even breathe smoothly. His nose felt sour, as if something was about to gush out of his eyes. No. Dmo Xian answered without any hesitation, seeing through the guilt and thoughts in Yi-Ching Luo's eyes. His long arm stretched out and pulled Yi-Ching Luo into his embrace. Don't let your imagination run wild, I'm fine. His reply was straightforward and decisive, but it also indirectly proved that this injury was indeed the injury suffered in Death God Castle. For her, he had been injured, and for her, he had stayed by her side with his injuries. He had been pretending to be fine because he didn't want her to worry. Yi-Ching Luo's eyes gradually turned red. How could this man be so foolish? Feeling heartache. Dmo Xian's fingers slowly brushed past Yi-Ching Luo's cheeks, his fingertips paused at the corner of her eyes. If you can't bear to let me feel pain, kiss me and it won't hurt anymore. You. Even at this moment, he could still act like a hooligan with a straight face. Yi-Ching Luo stared at Dmo Xian as she suddenly pushed his hand away. He took out some pills and gauze from the profound phoenix ring. You knew that I would be worried, yet you still hid the fact that you were injured. Yi-Ching Luo pursed her pink lips, her eyes filled with anger. You only let me know now, I'm even more worried, all right. She untied Dmo Xian's bloody gauze and threw it aside. Yi-Ching Luo then looked seriously at the wound on Dmo Xian's chest. It was a wound caused by a sharp weapon. The wound was not deep, but it happened to be close to the heart. Fortunately, Dmo Xian managed to evade in time and did not suffer any fatal injuries. Sharp weapons. Yi-Ching Luo's pupils contracted as she was already certain that Dmo Xian's injury was caused when he was challenging the mechanisms in Death God Castle, when he triggered the mechanism. That was also such an intricate map. The route towards the exquisite pagoda was drawn out clearly, and every single mechanism was marked out clearly. If it wasn't for the fact that he had tried every single mechanism, how could it be drawn out so intricately? The contours of Dmo Xian's face were extremely gentle, and the gaze which he gazed at Yi-Ching Luo was filled with tenderness and pampering. One was bandaging his wound, while the other was staring at her tenderly and sweetly. The breeze blew, as the flower petals danced. Pieces of flower petals were like dancing butterflies, lingering between the two of them. Chapter 630. After Yi-Ching Luo was done with the bandaging, she helped Dmo Xian to adjust his clothes properly and was about to speak. His line of sight met with a calm sleeping face. A man with outstanding looks, no matter from which angle, was so handsome that it made one want to scream. Not knowing when, he had fallen into a deep sleep. He was in a deep sleep. Even when she slowly moved her body and laid down beside him, he didn't wake up. Usually, he was vigilant and could even sense a gust of wind. His injury was too serious. Yi-Ching Luo's heart ached as she pursed her lips tightly, as she half propped up her body and leaned beside him, staring at his face. The man in his sleep, his brows were tightly knitted into a bundle. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but stretched out her hand and swept past the wrinkles between his brows, as she gently caressed it. Perhaps it was the softness of her fingers, perhaps it was the gentleness of her fingertips, perhaps it was the familiarity of her scent. That tightly knitted brows, slowly smoothed out. Lil Luo, A soft murmur spilled out from his thin lips. Following that, her hand was accurately held in the palm of the man's hand. His fingers tightened, as though he was holding the most precious thing in the world, tightly gripping it. Her heart suddenly increased the rate of its beating. Every time, it fiercely pounded against her throat. A gush of warmth slowly flowed from the bottom of her heart. She held that hand, slowly lowered her body, and planted a kiss on his pale thin lips. Silly girl. A helpless sigh spilled out from between her lips that were so tightly pressed together. The next day, Yiqing Luo was woken up by Dmo Xian. She rubbed her eyes, got up and was about to tear open Dmo Xian's clothes, wanting to take a look at his wound, and at the same time help him change his dressing, but was stopped by Dmo Xian. She should go to the academy. Yiqing Luo used both carrot and stick, but was unable to make Dmo Xian loosen his mouth, so she could only helplessly let him return to the palace to recuperate. She was going back to the academy today, so Dmo Xian need not worry about her leading the brothers on experience learning and getting injured. Sending Dmo Xian off on little Nine with her eyes, Yiqing Luo then returned to the mansion alone. The youngsters had long put on their academy uniforms, as they lined up neatly in the garden. When they saw Yiqing Luo, they started to tease Yiqing Luo that she really didn't return for the entire night. But teasing was just teasing, they still understood Yiqing Luo's character very well. They were all clear that there was nothing between Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian. They were tactful enough not to intentionally ask where Dmo Xian had gone to. Amidst the laughter, everyone's serious mood from early in the morning also became relaxed. The 3 days of their holiday were spent in abundance. There were more than 10 youths who had successfully advanced a grade in these 3 days. As for those who did not advance, they could clearly feel that their physical fitness and overall strength had been greatly improved. This was the power that came from constantly fighting in dangerous situations. Qing Luo. Xiao Jin walked over with a space bag. Last night, Shi Ju came back with a space bag in his mouth. It was filled with. He took out a black suit from his pocket. The flame-like cherry blossom embroidery on his right sleeve was extremely obvious. Wasn't it the uniform that the Blue Dragon mercenary group people wore yesterday? It must be Yiqing Luo's order for Shi Ju to retrieve these uniforms. Why did Yiqing Luo want these uniforms? Could it be that she wanted them to wash it before wearing it? Not to mention that these uniforms were tattered in this round's experience learning, ugly and smelly. Just these uniforms, if those Blue Dragon mercenary group members wore them, they wouldn't want to wear them anymore. Chapter 631. Xiao Jin didn't understand why as he carried his space bag and turned around, calling the youngsters to retrieve firewood from the kitchen as he directly set up a fire in the courtyard. We've given Blue Dragon mercenary group 54 sets. Yiqing Luo suddenly opened her mouth as she called out to Xiao Jin, before you burn it, count how many sets there are. These sets of clothes were indeed brought back by her. Even the group uniforms on those corpses who had died at the entrance of the magic beast forest, Yiqing Luo also asked Shi Ju to bring them back. She picked up the number of sets which Ji Tsangtian had worn away. Based on Ji Tsangtian's character, after he returned to his own camp and saw his disheveled self, then seeing those 30 over members returning, looking at the clothes they were wearing, he would recall the humiliation he had suffered in the magic beast forest. He would definitely be fuming with rage. She asked them to change out of their clothes and throw them out of sight and out of mind. Yiqing Luo wouldn't give them any chance to malign the world group. If one set of clothes was used, it could possibly cause a huge impact on the world group. Yi Qing Luo wanted to eliminate all possibilities. Qiao Jin seemed to have understood something as he laughed out loudly. You're the one who thought it through thoroughly. Burn. Burn all these clothes. Anyway, for the next 1 month, they wouldn't be able to wear the group uniform which belonged to them. They had plenty of time to customize a new batch of uniforms. The material and enchantment as well as the gravity belt had to be done meticulously. These were all things which Yan Xiaoyi had discussed with the tailor's shop early on. They only needed to wait for a month before they could collect it from the tailor's shop. Not long later, the courtyard was lit up with flames as pieces of uniforms were thrown into the flames. A total of 54 pieces, no more and no less. Qiao Jin was burning as he told Yi Qing Luo the numbers which he had counted. Yi Qing Luo nodded as her heart which was hanging in the balance was finally put down. Lighting a fire in the courtyard so early in the morning, are you trying to burn down this huge mansion? Suddenly an old but powerful voice was heard from the end of the courtyard. Following that, they saw an elderly dressed in a white robe walking over leisurely. It seemed as though he had just casually taken a step, but in a blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of Yi Qing Luo and the others. Expert. This was absolutely an expert. The youngsters' gazes were fixed on that elderly. Why did he look a little familiar? Yi Qing Luo also had this feeling. He furrowed his brows and stared at the old man as he thought about it for a long time. In the end, he said with uncertainty, "Are you Holy Pirate?" The old man raised his eyebrows and raised his hand to touch his grizzled hair. His eyes were bright. After taking a bath, trimming my hair, and changing my clothes, I'm so handsome that you can't recognize me. It was really Holy Pirate. One must know that when he was rescued from Death God Castle's dungeon, he was a person who had not bathed for 10 years. His body was so dirty that he was almost covered in lice and bedbugs. How could she recognize a face that was completely black? After bringing God Thief back to the mansion, Yi Qing Luo's entire mind was on the Dark Forces matters and the other missions, totally throwing him aside. He didn't expect Holy Pirate to take care of himself. God knows how much water he had to wash himself to be so clean. Little girl, are you going to the academy? Go in peace. Leave the mansion and the world group to me. God Thief patted his chest. Why did Yi Qing Luo feel that this old man was extremely unreliable? Chapter 632. Yi Qing Luo felt that this old man was even more unreliable. However, he was still an old man that he had picked up. Moreover, he was once the #1 holy thief in the Nirvana realm. Even if he had not been able to stretch his muscles and bones for 10 years, he would be able to recover his skills in a few days. Even if he wasn't as powerful as before, he still had the ability to protect himself. As long as he could find the feeling he once had, the holy pirate of the past could return. After all, to become the #1 holy thief, one had to rely on absolute power. She could not bring Holy Pirate to the college. It would be a good idea to let Holy Pirate manage the mansion. What's more, the 30-odd members of the Blue Dragon group might come to report to him. Yi Qing Luo still handed the manor over to God Thief to look after. As for the world group, Yi Qing Luo didn't hand it over to God Thief, only instructing him repeatedly that if anyone were to bring the proof of the world group seal over to them, then leave them behind. By the time they had arranged everything, it was already morning, which was around 7 or 8 in the morning. Yi Qing Luo and the rest left the mansion. They didn't arrive at the academy together. Instead, they split up into several teams. If he were to stay by Yi Qing Luo's side, he would probably become the center of attention again. It would also easily expose the devil class to the public. Yi Qing Luo only brought Yi Fengyu along and walked openly through the academy's main entrance. Today was the first day of school, and there was a sea of people at the entrance of the academy, with an endless stream of horses and carriages. After Yi Qing Luo and Yi Fengyu walked into the academy, they indeed became the center of attention. After all, what happened in the Three Springs sect on a holiday was too unbelievable. First, Yi Qingjian and Ling Fenghua's secret affair was exposed. It was exposed that they were in the Crown Prince Palace's garden, in broad daylight. Moreover, Yi Qingqian was tormented till she was injured. Of course, if Yi Qingqian and Ling Fenghua were in love with each other, then it was perfectly justifiable. But unfortunately, Ling Fenghua was Yi Qingqian's seventh sister and also Yi Qingluo's fiancée. This was the loss of morals, this was the wrong view of the world. Yi Qingqian's deeds naturally affected Three Springs sect. Naturally it would implicate Yi Qingluo. It was like someone's father was a murderer. Everyone would subconsciously think that the whole family was a murderer when they saw that person's family. While everyone was sympathizing with Yi Qingluo, at the same time, they felt that Yi Qingluo and Yi Qingjian were almost the same. After all, they were taught by the same father. But, after that, news of Yi Qingluo clashing with the high profound class students at Heavenly Fortune Inn and finally being taken away by the Overlord's sacred beast, Nine-tailed Fox, started to spread. While everyone was ridiculing Yi Qingqian, no one dared to bring Yi Qingluo along. It could be said that during the 3 days of vacation, the first miss and seventh miss of the Three Springs sect manor had become the talk of the town. You still have the guts to come to the academy. How shameless! Just as everyone was discussing in hushed voices, a sharp and ear-piercing voice rang out. Shortly after, a young girl walked over with her hands on her hips. Yi Qingluo couldn't be bothered, but the young lady was standing right in front of her and stretched out her hand to block her. This was the entrance to the academy, and there were many students coming and going. On seeing that someone dared to find fault with Yi Qingluo, they all stopped in their tracks to watch excitedly. Your eldest sister did such a shameless thing and was chased out of Three Springs City. She's setting off today, aren't you going to send her off? That young lady spoke in a weird tone. Shangguan Liuli. Chapter 633. You. Shangguan Liuli's face turned gloomy as she stared fiercely at Yi Qingluo. Such a huge matter had happened in Three Springs sect, how could Yi Qingluo still remain so calm? Yi Qingqian was her elder sister. The Three Springs sect was her backer. Now that there were rumors and slanderous discussions, she could still smile. Was she intentionally acting so calm, or was she too cold-blooded? Shangguan Liuli's heart seeped out a sliver of coldness. Yi Qingluo's gaze casually swept past the surrounding students as her charming eyes remained calm. Firstly, whatever Yi Qingqian did, she's shameless and it has nothing to do with me. Secondly, you're an unmarried young lady and in front of everyone, you dare to say such shameless things that Yi Qingluo had done. This is enough to prove that the thoughts in your mind are also dirty and shameless. When Yi Qingluo said the second point, Shangguan Liuli's steely green face instantly turned red. She clenched her teeth tightly as her 5 fingers clutched the corner of her clothes as her fingertips turned white. You're talking nonsense. I didn't. However, Shangguan Liuli's rebuttal didn't have much confidence. Her imposing manner had been completely suppressed by Yi Qingluo. The surrounding students' gazes towards Shangguan Liuli had also changed. Those pairs of unclear eyes looked at Shangguan Liuli as though her mind was really filled with dirty thoughts. There were even some male students who had already revealed a covetous gaze towards her. Shangguan Liuli had never suffered such humiliation before. Since when had she been stared at in such a blatant manner? Her entire face instantly flushed red from embarrassment and indignation. Her petite body was shaking non-stop as a pair of watery eyes stared resentfully at Yi Qingluo. But Yi Qingluo's expression remained calm as though she hadn't noticed Shangguan Liuli's vengeful gaze. Or perhaps she totally didn't put Shangguan Liuli in her eyes. Following that, Yi Qingluo's pink lips curled as she revealed an elegant smile. Thirdly, Are you sure that Yi Qing Qian will be chased out of Three Spring City today? What do you mean? Shangguan Liuli was startled, her beautiful eyes widening. Yi Qing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly, her long and narrow eyes revealed a hint of ridicule, regarding the second half of the rumor. I'm afraid the chess player did not tell you about it. A chess player? No matter how silly Shangguan Liuli was, she understood Yi Qing Luo's meaning. She was being used by someone. Looking at Yi Qing Luo's serene eyes, Shangguan Liuli's heart trembled as she suddenly thought of something as her face turned pale. Yesterday, when she had a flower tea gathering with the other ladies from the noble families, she overheard Lu Shuiyu and Lu Shuelon discussing the Three Springs sect. That was when he found out that something huge had happened to Three Springs sect's Yi Qing Jian. The Lu sisters kept on shifting the topic to Yi Qing Luo, talking about it in a few words. Yi Qing Luo and Yi Qing Jian were sisters, so naturally they received the same education. Yi Qing Qian was shameless and Yi Qing Luo must also be a shameless lady. Following that, they started on various topics, pointing out that Yi Qing Luo was able to gain Dmo Xian's favor, was absolutely because of her foxy skills. Hearing these, Shangguan Liuli, who originally bore a grudge against Yi Qing Luo, how could she possibly let go of this chance to ridicule Yi Qing Luo? Her reputation was the most important thing for a lady. Because of this, Shangguan Liuli blocked the academy's entrance early in the morning, just to humiliate Yi Qing Luo fiercely, ruining her reputation, making her the laughingstock of the entire Three Spring City. But Yi Qing Luo's performance was too calm. So calm that Shangguan Liuli started to feel a little guilty. The second half of the rumor. We'll be able to see it soon. Yi Qing Luo's gaze shot towards a direction not too far away, as a teasing smile flashed past her eyes. Chapter 634. As expected, at the instant when Yi Qing Luo's words had just ended, she heard astonished cries coming from the huge crowd of people. Following that, a luxurious and exquisite carriage which was inlaid with sparkling crystals was seen slowly approaching. Wasn't the person in front of the carriage the current second prince Lang Fengying? Ever since Lang Fenghua fell from power, second prince's status had risen along with it. Numerous powerhouses and nobles all treated second prince as the crown prince's candidate, which was the future monarch. Even now, the crown prince's position had yet to be decided. But after all, in the entire West continent, only second prince had the ability to become the crown prince. Because of this, when these people saw Lang Fengying, all of them revealed a fawning smile as they went up to him in an attempt to attract his attention. Especially those elders who were sending their children to school, they all went up to greet him. Lang Fengying maintained his gentle and refined smile from start to finish, his handsome features looked innocent and harmless. If one didn't know him well, just based on his looks, they would only think that he was a weak young man without the strength to truss a chicken, a soft-footed prawn that could be easily pinched. This kind of person easily made others feel close to him. This kind of person was even more welcomed by the imperial court's ministers. But to be able to grow up in the royal family, to be able to establish a batch of imperial court forces under Lang Fenghua's oppression, and also to pull in a portion of the external forces unknowingly. Finally, after Lang Fenghua met with a mishap, every step he took was so natural. Yi Qing Luo didn't believe that this second prince was someone who was easy to deal with. Shangguan Liuli saw Lang Fengying at one glance as her eyes shone, its second prince. That dainty face was an obvious bashfulness of a young lady meeting her sweetheart. She took quick steps forward and squeezed past those people who were flocking towards her as she pounced beside Lang Fengying, second prince. Lang Fengying, who had just flipped down the horse, had a smile on his face, as though he was bathed in the spring breeze, warming the earth. He passed the reins to the footboy and his arm was covered by a touch of warmth. Lowering his eyes, he saw Shangguan Liuli's bashful smile as she looked at him with a beaming face. Second prince, you haven't come to Shangguan residence to see me for a long time. Her tone was filled with tenderness. The onlookers looked at the two of them with dubious gazes. The second prince was so familiar with the daughter of the Shangwan family. From time to time, he would go to the Shangwan residence to visit the daughter of the Shangwan housekeeper. Could it be that the second prince was going to marry into the Shangwan family? Fifth Miss Shangwan. Ling Fengying calmly retracted his hand as he silently pulled the distance between the two of them apart with a gentle smile. A few days ago I consulted Shangwan family head about the plan to control the flood in the North Village, and it has already started to be implemented. I've been busy with this matter and forgot to thank Shangwan family head. It's this prince's fault. In just a few words, he had completely explained the ambiguous meaning in Shangwan Liuli's words. Everyone was enlightened. It turned out that the second prince went to the Shangwan residence to ask for a plan to control the flooding in Beituan. The second prince was indeed a benevolent prince who cared for the common people. As expected, he was a smart man. He was definitely not on the same level as Ling Fenghua. If this time round, even if she hadn't opened up an entrance for Ling Fengying, not too long in the future, Ling Fengying would use his own method to open up an entrance for himself. The moment the words about controlling the flood were explained, naturally no one would doubt the authenticity of these words. Because Shangwan family head was once an official in the imperial court, hence he was in charge of this aspect. Chapter 635. However, Shangwan Liuli, who was fixated on her Prince Charming, did not bring her brain with her. Or rather, Shangwan Liuli had no brains at all. She totally didn't understand the meaning in Ling Fengying's words, nor did she notice the distance that Ling Fengying had pulled apart from her. The second prince cares about the people. Father will not blame you. Saying that, Shangwan Liuli took another step forward as she stretched out her hand to hook onto Ling Fengying's arm once again. Second prince, even if the problem of controlling the flood is settled, you can also come to Shangwan residence to take a look at Liuli. Liuli really misses you. Hearing this sentence, Yi Qing Luo almost coughed out. Should she say that Shangwan Liuli was stupid, or that she knew how to play with people's hearts? Shangwan Liuli would stop her at the academy's entrance and use Yi Qing Qian's matter to ruin her reputation. She probably knew the importance of a good reputation to a woman. But unfortunately, the expression on Shangwan Liuli's face and the words she said revealed her admiration towards Ling Fengying, as well as her private ambiguous relationship with Ling Fenghua. She was certain that Ling Fengying would marry her. One must know that Shangwan Liuli's performance in front of everyone had totally tagged her as Ling Fengying. If Ling Fengying didn't marry her, Shangwan Liuli would probably be single for the rest of her life. After all, Ling Fengying's identity was there for all to see. It was very likely that he would be the future monarch. Who would dare to touch a woman that the monarch might have had an affair with? What Yi Qing Luo was thinking was naturally what everyone was thinking. All of them discussed in low voices, trying to guess the relationship between Shangwan Liuli and the second prince. Right at this moment, the curtain of the luxurious carriage was pinched by a white finger, and then a sweet-sounding voice was heard. Fifth Miss Shangwan, in the heart of the second prince, there is only the West Continent and all the common people of the West Continent. Could it be that fifth Miss Shangwan hopes that the second prince will abandon the common people and go to the Shangwan residence to see you every day? His tone was filled with disdain and mockery. Ding ding dong dong, the sound of jewelry colliding against each other could be heard. Immediately, a woman dressed in luxurious clothing came out of the carriage. Ling Fengying immediately went over and stretched out his hand to support that woman. Shangwan Liuli's hand, which she tried to pull over, naturally missed. That young lady's little hand was placed on the back of Ling Fengying's hand as she slowly walked down the carriage. When everyone saw the woman's face clearly, they all cried out in disbelief. Yi Qing Qian. Shangwan Liuli's eyes widened in shock. This woman was wearing a greenish-white academy uniform, and there were a few dazzling accessories on her waist. The most eye-catching thing about her was her face. Her makeup was exquisite, and her deliberately trimmed eyebrows were full of heroic spirit. Her seemingly simple yet graceful hair was pinned with a dazzling hairpin and hair ornament. Wasn't this the Yi Qingqian whom the monarch had assigned to King Ping, the one who was going to follow King Ping to the fief? At this time, wasn't she already in the carriage arranged by the monarch and leaving Three Springs City? She actually wore the academy uniform and appeared in the Heavenly Academy. Moreover, he had come together with the second prince. For so many years, the second prince had always kept a low profile and had a good character. He had never had any bad rumors with any woman. If one were to say that Shangguan Liuli's ambiguous words had stirred up gossip in everyone's hearts, most people still did not quite believe it. But the minute they saw Yi Qingqian, their gossipy hearts started to boil. Second prince and Yi Qingqian. Who was Yi Qingqian? Second prince's future sister-in-law. She had a relationship with second prince's eldest brother. How did second prince get involved with Yi Qingqian? And from the looks of this situation, from second prince's attitude towards Yi Qingqian, it was obviously. Chapter 636. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. She wanted to ask, the male god in her heart, holding the hand of the woman whom she despised from the bottom of her heart, walking arrogantly in front of her, how would she feel? Shangguan Liuli only knew that a chord in her brain had snapped. Suddenly, it exploded, leaving only a blank space. Her body had already started to move according to Shangguan Liuli's most genuine thoughts. She speedily walked in front of Ling Fengying, blocking his path as she stared fiercely at Yi Qingqian. Second prince, what's your relationship with this slut? The surrounding crowd stuck their heads out, expressing that they were extremely curious about the answer to this question. Fifth Miss Shangguan, what relationship I have with second prince, is none of your business. Yi Qingqian's brows rose as her lips curled into a contemptuous smile. A good dog doesn't block the way. Fifth Miss Shangguan, please move aside. You actually dare to call me a dog? Shangguan Liuli's cheeks flushed red, especially that smirk of ridicule in Yi Qingqian's eyes, pierced deeply into her eyes. Shangguan Liuli bit her lower lip tightly, suppressing the surging anger in her chest as she stubbornly looked at Ling Fengying, second prince. Don't be cheated by this vixen, she's simply a shameless slut. With a bam, Shangguan Liuli's petite body was sent flying. Yi Qingqian retracted her hand as that usually gentle white lotus face was filled with arrogance, an unconcealable arrogance. Shangguan Liuli, don't be so shameless when I give you face. Who gave you the right to insult me? This action made the surrounding students gasp in shock. In their eyes, Yi Qingqian was a pure white lotus. Yi Qingqian was the #1 beauty in Three Springs City. She was beautiful, had high innate talent, had a gentle character and treated others with courtesy. In other words, she was a big white lotus who gathered all the advantages. This was the first time they saw Yi Qingqian revealing such an arrogant and haughty expression. This was also the first time they saw Yi Qingqian slapping someone without any explanation. Yi Qingluo was also slightly shocked. She squinted her eyes as she stared at Yi Qingqian with interest. It turned out that her big sister, who was like a white lotus, had completely darkened after experiencing this incident. But that's right. His reputation and whatnot were already ruined. No matter how Yi Qingqian acted, or how she acted as a white lotus. The people of Three Springs City wouldn't believe it, and neither would the people of the West Continent. Stealing his sister's fiancé was the same as stealing his sister's fiancé. Rolling around with his sister's fiancé was the same as rolling around with his sister's fiancé. Everything was the truth. There was no way to refute that. It would be better to just turn evil and not bother to wear that hypocritical mask anymore. In any case, he would be scolded for pretending to be innocent. Even if he turned dark, he would still be scolded. Darkening, at least he felt good in his heart, and he didn't have to be so aggrieved. He had to admit that Yi Qing Qian's move was extremely good. As though noticing Yi Qing Luo's gaze, that arrogant lady's eyebrows rose as her vision shot towards Yi Qing Luo. Then, a murderous look flashed across her eyes. She lifted her hand and wiped it across her neck. Her fiery red lips curled into an arrogant, cold smile. Her lips wriggled as she spat out a few words soundlessly. You, just wait and see. Yi Qing Luo's expression didn't change as she didn't respond to Yi Qing Qian's provocation. From the time she heard the high-profound class discussing about Yi Qing Qian and second princes hooking up, Yi Qing Luo guessed that this big sister White Lotus was like a weed with tenacious vitality. Yi Qing Qian was still alive. As long as Yi Qing Qian was given a chance to make a comeback, she would disregard everything to get this chance. Chapter 637. But what made Yi Qing Luo curious was, what conditions did Yi Qing Qian set out to attract Ling Fengying's wild ambition? He didn't care about Yi Qing Qian's current disreputable reputation, which would affect his current status, and personally sent Yi Qing Qian to the academy to build up her reputation. With second prince as her backing, everyone's discussions and ridicule towards Yi Qing Qian were more or less restrained. Shangguan Liuli was beaten into a daze. She sat on the ground in a daze, clutching her swollen red cheek, as blood seeped out from the corner of her mouth. Yi Qing Qian actually hit him. Yi Qing Qian, that slut, actually dared to hit her. Shangguan Liuli was infuriated. With a sudden sound, she sprang up from the ground, as she raised her hand and sent a slap towards Yi Qing Qian's face. You slutty vixen, I asked you to hit me, I asked you to use your unrestrained nature to seduce second prince. Shangguan Liuli had always been arrogant and willful. Since young, she had only suffered a loss in Yi Qing Luo's hands. At this moment, Yi Qing Qian also dared to press on top of her. Especially Yi Qing Qian, who had snatched away the male god in her heart. Shangguan Liuli instantly shifted her hatred towards Yi Qing Luo onto Yi Qing Qian. But before she could pounce on her, a figure dashed out from the crowd, blocking Shangguan Liuli's way. Following that, she heard an apologetic voice, Second Prince, eldest Miss Yi, my sister and I had a small conflict today, and I've been suppressing my anger in my heart, so I acted up for no reason, disturbing Second Prince and eldest Miss Yi. It's my sister's fault, I apologize on behalf of my sister. Third brother. Shangguan Liuli's eyes widened, as she stared in disbelief at the man who was tugging her. Shangguan Fengyi's hand, at a place where no one could see, pinched Shangguan Liuli's flesh fiercely. Shangguan Liuli cried out in pain, as her eyes instantly turned red, as she covered her face aggrievedly, shaking off Shangguan Fengyi's hand, stomping her feet. She turned around and ran away crying. Second Prince, eldest Miss Yi, I'm sorry. Shangguan Fengyi bowed his body slightly. No worries. Ling Fengying smiled faintly as he shook his head. Perhaps some of this prince's actions had caused 5th Miss Shangguan to misunderstand. I'm indebted to 5th Miss Shangguan's misplaced love. Shangguan Fengyi's face darkened. Ling Fengying saying these words in front of everyone totally destroyed Shangguan Liuli's reputation. Shangguan Liuli admired the second prince and was rejected by him. Once the news got out, would Shangguan Liuli still be able to find a husband? Which young master would dare to accept her? If Ling Fengying hadn't said these words, Shangguan Fengyi could still use other words to smooth over Shangguan Liuli's earlier actions. But Ling Fengying totally didn't give Shangguan Liuli this chance. Was he standing up for Yi Qing Qian? Shangguan Fengyi was overwhelmed with shock as he subconsciously took a look at Yi Qing Qian. But he discovered that Yi Qing Qian's pretty face was covered with a layer of arrogant frost, looking at him with a smile that didn't look like a smile. That gaze was filled with a strong warning. She was totally different from the usual Yi Qing Qian. It was as though he was a completely different person. Shangguan Fangyi lowered his head and looked away. He murmured, "Then I shall not disturb second prince and eldest Miss Yi." Saying that, he chased after the direction which Shangguan Liuli ran towards. Ling Fengning and Yi Qingqian held hands as he sent Yi Qingqian into the academy before he stopped in his tracks. Standing at the entrance of the academy, he remained silent for a moment before he turned around and returned to the carriage. This action seemed as though he treasured Yi Qingqian a lot. But in Yi Qingluo's eyes, she only felt that Ling Fengning was completing a mission. A mission which he had discussed with Yi Qingqian. There were no feelings between them. Chapter 638. Standing by the side of the carriage, Ling Fengning didn't directly mount the horse. Instead, he stood on the spot and remained silent for quite a while, as his peripheral vision shot towards Yi Qingluo's direction. Then, he leaped onto his horse and led a group of people away in a grandiose manner. Yi Qingluo's eyes narrowed as she was slightly astonished. Eldest sister she. Yi Fengyu frowned as he thought of Yi Qingqian just now and couldn't help but have goosebumps. That kind of Yi Qingqian was totally different from the Yi Qingqian in his memories. Don't bother about her. Yi Qingluo ruffled Yi Fengyu's hair. Next time you see her, just avoid her. Now, she doesn't even want to wear that gentle mask anymore. She won't be soft-hearted towards you. Yi Fengyu was stunned. All right, go in. Don't forget to report to Teacher Guiyu. Yi Qingluo patted his face, grabbed his shoulder and pushed him towards the school gate. Teacher Guiyu, you should be very interested in our 3 days of experience learning. Sister, what are you going to do? Kids shouldn't ask too many questions. After sending Yi Fengyu away, Yi Qingluo didn't enter the academy but blended into the crowd and quietly disappeared from everyone's sight. Everyone's attention was focused on Yi Qingqian and Ling Fengning, so naturally no one noticed Yi Qingluo's disappearance. Yi Qingluo arrived at the back alley of the Heavenly Academy with ease. This was the place where she barged into when she first came to the Heavenly Academy. It was also here that he was assassinated by the triplets of Godless Island, the 3 evils of Godless. At this moment, the back alley was still silent, without the slightest sign of life. Yi Qingluo stopped at a dead end as her voice was chilly. Aren't you looking for me? Why are you hiding? Are you worried about being discovered? As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of light footsteps came from behind him. Following that, she heard Ling Fengying's gentle voice ringing behind her. Yes, 7th Mississippi, what's the matter, second prince? Yi Qingluo raised her brows and turned around with a playful smile. Earlier, before Ling Fengning mounted the horse and left, he specially took a look at her as his lips moved slightly. Yi Qingluo could read lips. He asked her to meet him in the back alley. Coincidentally, she also had something which she wanted to discuss with Ling Fengning. After all, the relationship between them could be considered to be a cooperative one. 7th young mistress of the night is so intelligent. You should understand why I am looking for you. Ling Fengning was indeed an intelligent man, and right now when he was conversing with Yi Qingluo, he had automatically changed his self-address to I, indicating his respect towards Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingluo covered her mouth and chuckled. Her eyes were glowing. Second prince didn't say anything. No matter how intelligent I am, I'm not a roundworm in his stomach. Don't you have anything to ask me? Of course there is, but... Yi Qingluo dragged her words. Will you answer truthfully? Yes. Ling Fengning spat out a word without any hesitation. I owe you a favor, so I will answer whatever questions you ask me. That pair of gentle eyes stared straight at Yi Qingluo, filled with sincerity. As though he was expressing his determination to Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingluo squinted her eyes in interest. To tell the truth, before this, she totally had no impression of Ling Fengning at all. It was just that when he was dealing with Ling Fenghua, he deliberately investigated whether there was anyone in the current imperial family who could be on par with Leng Fenghua. From the investigations, Leng Fengying was an extremely mediocre prince. His innate talent was average and his deeds were average. Especially under Leng Fenghua's intentional oppression, his entire person could be described as ordinary. As for her, choosing Leng Fengying was based on her direct observation towards the imperial family. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.